Coming from somebody that hasn't always had the most glowing review about iFit NordicTrack Pro Form products, has this bike, the S27i, changed my view? Well, let's find out. So let's kick this video off with the first thing you're gonna have to do if you don't pay for them to do it, and that is assemble this bad boy. Now, back in the day when I assembled my first S22i, it was the worst bike I had assembled. Not that it was so much different than any other bike, but the weight is so extreme and so awkward that when you have to lift it and put the cross supports on, it's very difficult to lift it, put those under. By yourself, that's challenging. And that's why I assumed this thing that's bigger and badder is gonna be that much worse, but it wasn't. And the first reason the assembly was so much better is right here. Normally, this cross member needs to be bolted in place, which means lifting the bike, putting it in place, putting the bolts through, tightening them down, and that's not easy with these big, heavy machines. But this one comes already put together, and not just bolted together, welded together, which I really appreciate because you don't have to put together, but it makes it that much stronger. Next up is that the pedals came already installed, so it's just one less thing you have to do, and this might be the first bike I've received that I didn't have to put the pedals on, so I was happy about that. So are there things you still need to do? Absolutely. But compared to the S22i, this was so much easier and it's bigger, so big thumbs up on assembly. I think most people are gonna be able to tackle that and handle it just fine. Now, as far as looks go, I'll put footage on the screen, you can decide for yourself. I will say, I like this one a little bit better than past models. Almost every bike goes with that red and black and gray look, and they use blue instead. And I kinda like it. It's not too much, it's just a little bit, but it adds just a different color that stands apart from the rest, so I do appreciate that. Moving on to build quality, and the first thing I noticed is it just feels like everything about this model is built a little bit better. They put a little more effort in. It's less plasticky, there's less vibration, there's less movement. It just seems like they got rid of some of the cheap pieces and put some effort into actually making this a solid build end to end. On top of that, those welds I already mentioned. The frame is structurally sound. There's no parts to move or vibrate or assembly problems. It is just welded together. It's strong. When you ride, there's less movement under you. It feels very structurally sound. And considering the size of that monitor on the front, it handles it very well. So end to end, I feel like they've taken a major step forward with their build quality, which was always a big concern of mine in the past. Moving on to resistance. And if I'm looking at a bike for myself, this is something that I have to be able to check off. And this bike is passing all the checks. As far as just the overall quality, the smoothness, how good the resistance feel, is it consistent? It's all there. It does a fantastic job. And I'm actually quite surprised at how smooth it feels. I just get on and I'm like, wow, something they did. I don't know if they did something different. I don't know if they've even made improvements since previous models, but this one just feels so smooth, but yet while having very challenging resistance. So they did a very, very good job. It also has great range, meaning it can go from very easy to very hard and a lot of stops in between, so you can dial it in right where you want it. And as far as the top end resistance, some bikes hit a ceiling, meaning you kind of hit that spot where you're like, man, I wish I could just challenge myself a little more, but not with this one. It can get very, very challenging, but it still is smooth while doing so, which is a huge thing for me. So resistance is fantastic. I got nothing but good things to say in that category. So much more to cover, but I hope you feel like this video is helping you out. And if so, help me out by hitting that like button. All I ask, and I really appreciate it. If you do want to check this out, I do have a link. It does help support the channel. I'll put it in the description down below, but thank you very much. They got the pedals right on this one. Clip-ins on one side, cages on the other. Serious riders supported, casual riders supported. Everybody's gonna be happy. Well done, NordicTrack. Moving on to the screen, and the first thing you notice when you take this out of the box is that this thing is massive. But on top of being very large, they've done a good job keeping the quality high. The colors, the vibrancy, the lighting, it's all done very well, and I think it's performed very well as I use it. It does move up and down, side to side, so you can do those off the bike workouts. And I'm gonna circle back to this when I talk about experience, because there's some other improvements I've noticed that come through this, and I wanna make sure you know about those. Moving on to speakers. These do a very good job getting very loud and also keeping the quality. Now, some on a lot of bikes I've noticed is that the volume either doesn't get very high, or if it does, it starts to get very distorted and does not sound good. And I think they've done a great job making these sound very good. The one thing I will point out is I noticed they have almost no bass. So that thumping kind of gets you going, that motivation that you want from speakers when you're trying to work out isn't necessarily there, but the loudness and the quality is, so it's kind of a trade-off there. So it just depends on what you want. Moving on to the fan, a little smaller and maybe a little bit less powerful than previous models, but it's right in the middle, points right at you. So it does a good job, and it's one of those sneaky little features that you really appreciate it once you realize it's there. On top of that, we also have controls here, so you can control the fan. You can also control your music volume, and when you hit this, it puts it on screen to let you have more controls if you want to fade in certain things in or out, which is really nice. Moving on to UI, content, and experience. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the UI and content, because for iFit products, it's the same across the board. So if you've ever watched a video or used an iFit product before, you already know what that includes, and I don't want to waste your time. But you're going to get all that content that iFit's known for. So you're going to get map your own routes, you're going to get live rides, you're going to get the studio content, instructor-led scenic rides, using that swivel monitor for off-the-bike content, and so much more. So there is plenty to keep you entertained and working out hard on this bike. But comparing against the original S22i that I reviewed years back, the experience on this has improved so much, and that's where I want to spend more time. And I'm going to kick it off with the screen responsiveness. Now, this might seem like a small detail, but one of the first things I noticed when I got my original S22i, even though it was brand new, when I would scroll on a screen or when I would click something or when I would wait for something to load, there were always delays. It made it feel like a computer that you had bought that was already 5 years old and struggling to do the most basic things. And when it's brand new, that is just not what you want out of a product that you just spent a lot of money on. And with this, they have dramatically improved that. When you scroll, it's responsive. When you click, it's responsive. You can tell there's just a little more horsepower and build quality behind it, and I really appreciate that. Now for me, the spinning wheel was still there. So this is different from responsiveness because this means it's trying to load something. So when you're going to a new screen or you swipe hard and put a bunch of new content on, you can see those spinning wheels, and it takes a second for those to load. Now it does seem like it's a little bit faster, but I think this has to do with how they pull it down from the cloud. And there is room for improvement there, so I will point that out. That still exists, at least for me. And when it comes to the experience, all those in-ride features, those bells and whistles add up. And the more things you have that just keep you excited about what you're doing, or things that kind of go, oh wow, that's new, or wow, I love that it does this, those are the things that pull you in and make you want to keep using the product that you spent a good hunk of money on. So here's some of the things that I really appreciate that they've done over time to build up the experience. Leaderboard. It's been around for a while, but it's just another one of those motivational tools to see where you're at in your ride and try to push harder to see how high you can get on a leaderboard. Music controls. Not all bikes allow you to really get into this and control it, so I really appreciate that they do. You can choose the type of music you want, but then you can fade the instructor to the music. So you control how much instructor versus how much music you want, and you can dial it in just how you want it in case you want to go heavy music or heavy instructor, but there are a lot of controls there to get it set up just the way you want. So much information. At the top of the screen, there are boxes going across the top, and this has information that helps you see what you want to see, but you can also click on those and change what's displaying. So you have a lot of control to get the information you want. While this isn't everybody's cup of tea, if you're a numbers person that motivates you, you'll enjoy how much you have at your disposal. Automatic resistance changes. There's something about when you're in a ride and you're following an instructor and you're going through a trail and you don't have to divert your attention away and find a button and go, okay, I'm supposed to be at this now. It just does it. You're riding and it goes from 13 resistance to 14. It just does what it needs to do, so you feel like you're out in the trails. You feel like you're riding along with that person. You don't feel like it's a manual workout where you're changing things to make it match the terrain. And there's something special about that. It immerses you in the ride more. It gets more out of the ride. You seem to work out harder and you just enjoy the experience more. So I really appreciate how well they've built that out. Going right along with that is the automatic incline decline. If you're going up a mountain and that instructor says, here we go, we're going up this, you feel the incline increase. As you start to go down, it changes and it does it on its own. And again, it's just immersive and you enjoy it and it just makes you feel like you're really out there. So just another one of those really nice features, and they've done a good job building that in so it matches what you're seeing on the screen. And the last of my in-ride features is smart ride adjustments. It used to be where if you were following an instructor, it was just what it was. If they said we're going from level 13 resistance to 16, it did it. Well, now you can change it and make it harder and it will understand that. So if it was gonna go to 16, but you made it harder, it's gonna go to 18 now. It's gonna know that you're challenging yourself more or less. So you can dial it in and still do automatic features, but keep it at a level that works for you. So it's nice, it's just more technology that makes the experience fun. Final thoughts. As of filming this video, this bike is around $2,500. And I really like this bike. but that has it competing directly against the Peloton Bike Plus. And that's a tough challenger. Maybe a Peloton Bike Plus versus S27i video is in order. Comment below if you'd like to see that. But I will wrap this up by saying, when I reviewed my original S22i, there were things I really liked about it, but there were also a fair number of things that I didn't. And when I compared it against the Peloton back there was this huge gap. And my takeaway was that if you like this or this about the S22i, the instructor-led scenic rides primarily, well then that'd be a reason to get the S22i. But everything else, just about every other category, I would have picked the Peloton. I would have said it's just a better bike, and that is what leads me to the huge gap that was back then. But with this bike, after testing it, I don't feel like there's a gap like this. I feel it's like this or maybe like this. They are very comparable options now. And when you pick between these, you have the luxury of kind of going, let me pick the features and functionalities I like and the bike that best fits me, instead of going, well, I really like this, but I hate all these other things. It's not like that anymore. So the landscape has changed a lot, and I am very happy to report that, because you can just pick the one that matches your exercise personality without feeling like you might be sacrificing in a lot of other areas. So what I'm really saying is that the NordicTrack bikes have come a long ways. I feel like you now get a great end-to-end experience, and it's a product that I feel like I can get behind, which is nice to say because I haven't always felt that way. So I guess, well done, NordicTrack. But I hope you found this helpful. Again, links in the description if you want to check it out. Hit that like button if you don't mind. Subscribe to stay on top of everything where health and technology meet. And until next time, here's to a healthier you, and have a good one.